Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. 3 killed in separate incidents last evening in St. James. Riley River residents worried river may overflow its banks during the hurricane season. And later in sports, 2 Jamaican sprinters out of Racers Grand Prix. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters. Here are the details. The parish of St. James has been rocked with another set of murders. 3 people were killed in the last 24 hours. Shamela Pullen has the details.
The most recent incident happened at about 11 o'clock Wednesday night in Roehampton, St. James. 2 men were shot and killed by gunmen. They have been identified as 20-year-old Tavar Doman and 23-year-old Linstead Anderson. According to reports, both men were at a house when armed men approached them and opened fire. They died on the spot.
I talked to him Sunday. I talked to him Monday. So if I come cook rice and peas for him. Mommy, I want and cooking. Mommy, I hear food I want. I say my son buy the chicken. I soon come. Mommy, you not come nowhere to treat me. I really never come. From this, I not talk to him, but I call and check on him. All the while. Call all my son and I say my son go look if he alright also.
God is alright. Father God will fix it. I know I'm going to fix it. I know.
Relatives are also questioning the circumstances under which the men were killed.
He's very jovial, very kind, very friendly, very, very jovial. Everybody in the community love him, talk about him. Oh, Jesus, we can't take it no more, God.
When was the last time I spoke to him?
Yesterday.
You not know why anybody going to hurt yourself?
No. I don't know if anyone have anything. I don't know nothing about that.
I don't know what to say. I swear to God. I don't know him. I don't know type of company. I'd have to say Ray. If you go say my son about. So my son is, see, I'm my mother. Hard when he go away, come back, and my mother and come Grams, you know, cook. My mother saying just when left with them, say nobody go down tonight. And boys, my daughter, they come in here for him. Then laugh and watch movie and then go down. Not even an hour after. Sad.
This is the second shooting in the community of Roehampton since the start of the week. Meanwhile, over in Tucker District, a 37-year-old law student, Andrea Anson, was shot and killed about 7 o'clock Wednesday evening. According to reports, Miss Anson was sitting at a car wash when gunmen came and opened fire at her. She ran into the car that was being cleaned, but the gunmen ran after her and shot her in the car. She was taken to the Cornwall Regional Hospital where she was pronounced dead. No motive has been established for the killings. The St. James police are investigating. Shamela Pullen, TVJ News.
Today, June 1, marks the start of the Atlantic hurricane season and the beginning of months of apprehension for many across the island. Well, residents living along the Riley River in Hanover are asking the government for answers after they were promised a solution last year.
Twisted houses, broken boards only tell part of the tale of those living on the banks of the Riley River in Hanover. It's a major concern for the political directorate in the parish, who say when that river is in spate, it is very difficult to reach those residents to provide assistance. It is not only a concern for the directorate, but the residents themselves. They say while they are willing to move, the issue is that they currently have nowhere to go. Hence, they are left at the mercy of the Riley River.
Boy, it's very dangerous. You know, I want to move and I don't know where to go. And sometimes the water catch me way up by my waist.
When time river come down and it come up, the water catch me all right on my chest. When time come out of my house.
I feel like the last and I'm done. I feel like I don't have nowhere to stay. Only option. So we said the one little partner this part years ago, when everything went up in the house, it cleaned up right in there. So.
Wow. So you're saying when it come up,
yes.
Come right in the house?
Come in the house, come right in.
The residents say none of their efforts to protect their homes have been successful thus far.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, man. Right, water come on, I block up under the door bottom them. They block them up. They come in.
You try to push those stuff there for the water not to come in.
Come in, yeah. They block it up.
So you're pushing those cloth under the bridge?
Yeah, for the water not come in. You come over here, man. One time rain fall until about 2 o'clock. And we can't sleep. We have to sit up and watch it. By the time I have to put up my food, you catch nails to come up the bed from the bed top.
In September last year, Minister with responsibility for climate change and the environment, Matthew Samuda, in expressing concern for residents, stated that too many of the houses are close to the riverbanks, which can be deadly. He had said that the government would be seeking to remove those residents.
It will be a long process, and that's why we're here with the full political directorate to ensure we can have those conversations. It's also bad environmentally to have effluent discharge into any sort of waterway in the way that you would have with people living in such close proximity to the river. And the reality is they're at danger. The river is deteriorating in terms of its own health because of that. So we'll have a lot of work to do.
The minister's comments followed the blocking of the bridge twice in August as bamboo from along the riverbanks washed down during heavy rains, leading to the blockage and the subsequent flooding. Hal Shaneberg, TVJ News.
Another year and a half. That's how long Member of Parliament for North West Manchester, Michael Phillips, believes it will take for work to start on the collapsed Troy Bridge on the border with Trelawney, following an added process of scrutiny on capital expenditure programs. That assessment, even as Minister responsible for Works, Everard Warmington, announced yesterday that $165 million has been set aside in the current budget to replace the bridge. Krista Campbell has been tracking this story and now reports.
Minister responsible for Works, Everard Warmington, making his sectoral presentation in Parliament on Wednesday.
Troy and Trelawney at a cost of $165 million.
Confirmation that money has been set aside for the 125-year-old Troy Bridge on the Manchester-Trelawney border to be replaced. It should come as good news for residents and North West Manchester Member of Parliament Michael Phillips, who have been agonizing for the matter to be treated with urgency after the bridge collapsed during the passage of Tropical Storm Grace in August 2021. But the MP is not so optimistic after CEO of the National Works Agency, NWA, E.G. Hunter, revealed at this month's Infrastructure and Physical Development Committee meeting that the process will take a little while longer. He says new capital expenditure projects have to undergo extra scrutiny and get approval from the Public Investment Appraisal Branch, PIAB.
The analysis is intended to answer the question, do you really need to replace the bridge? I mean, because every time you close a bridge, there's an alternate route. And what the Minister of Finance is seeking to do is to establish the need to replace the bridge based on evidence.
I can understand that if you're putting in a new structure.
Well,
I can understand that with a new structure. We're talking about one that was existing.
The MP wanted to know just how long it will take to approve the contract for work to start on a replacement bridge.
It takes about 4 months. We have to buy some assistance, some consultancy to assist, because all the capital projects go through that process. So we're trying our best to push them as best as possible.
And that's before the bridge proposal gets to the PIAB. Mr. Hunter says the PIAB usually gives its approval within a day of receiving arguments about why it's better to replace or repair a bridge rather than have residents use the alternative route. After that, the contract goes to tender.
Your tendering process take about how long?
Well, just by the empirical evidence is that any contract that has to go to cabinet, which is in excess of 60 million. The limits are going to be changed, but in excess of 60 million from the time you tender until award is made is about 9 months.
So call it 12 months. So we look at about November next year then.
But the MP argued that's not good enough, especially because residents of at least 3 parishes, Manchester, St. Elizabeth and Trelawney, continue to risk their lives daily to use a makeshift bridge to cross the river below the collapsed structure. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. An early morning fire at the Linstead market in St. Catherine has left some vendors looking at millions of dollars in losses. According to the Jamaica Fire Brigade, the fire started at approximately 4:20. It says a total of 20 stalls were destroyed in the blaze. The vendors, who were on the verge of tears when we arrived at the facility, say they feel like they've been left out in the wilderness.
Start crying. They may have a little boy for graduate July I come.
First me ever experienced something like this. First. Everything gone. Everything. Me not know other help. No other help. I'm a fierce me, but I don't know where to begin from.
Councillor for the Linstead Division, Herbert Garrick, says while no lives were lost, it is devastating for those affected.
As you can see around you where nothing has been spared. The stalls were made of wood. And of course, most of them, if not all of them, were totally burnt out. Naturally, the goods that were on them would have been damaged and destroyed. One of the things that I'm hoping for now is that the parish council is going to be in a position to at least even assist the people who have lost their goods in a financial way to get back their life in place.
The council, in the meantime, suspects that the fire is the act of arsonists.
Because there's another section in the market, at the front of the market, exactly, where you could see where plastics were set afire. And luckily, somebody who was upstairs in the market saw it and threw water and got it out.
Opposition spokesman Peter Bunting has promised that the next PNP administration will fix what he describes as the unfair salary review of the rank and file members of the Jamaica Constabulary Force. Aisha Nation has the details.
If you can't take the heat, you better get out of the kitchen.
Opposition spokesperson on national security Peter Bunting sounding the alarm to the government at the Police Federation's 80th conference on Tuesday. While addressing delegates, Mr. Bunting tackled a number of issues affecting members of the JCF. He did not mince words as he blasted the Finance Ministry for how it treated police officers in the recent public sector compensation restructuring exercise.
This needs to be fixed. And if not done now, then a future PNP government will do so. In the meantime, I hope public sector negotiations do not allow the government to stop the annual increment. So you can't give with one hand and take it away with the other. They must ensure that the overtime regime for police officers, a promise long made, be properly and effectively implemented now.
He further argued that the salaries of the political directorate were hidden until most public sector workers signed the new wage agreement.
If it was justified, why were not the proposed settlements for all groups, including politicians, put on the table when the negotiations were taking place? I want to know if this federation would have signed for what you signed for if you had known what the cabinet ministers were getting. The tone of the negotiations was one of bullying. It was all about rushing to meet arbitrary deadlines. If you didn't sign by March, then the 12 billion we have put aside for you you'll have to wait years for it. But money has been found in this financial year though.
Police Federation Chairman Corporal Rohan James told members on Tuesday that the Federation will be pressing the Finance Ministry to correct the anomalies in their salaries. In the meantime, Mr. Bunting called for an increase in the income tax threshold. This, he says, will reverse the increase in taxes currently being paid by rank and file members of the force.
The salary increases to the officer corps is welcomed. But the rank and file also need a livable wage too. For all the risks they endure, they must be fairly compensated.
Aisha Nation, TVJ News.
And it's now time for the Business Minute.
Jamaica is expected to realize growth of 1 to 3% for the 2023-2024 fiscal year. Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, says despite the slower outturn, all industries are set to see GDP growth. He says some pandemic-induced strategies influence the projection for the period which ends March next year.
In some instances, the economy has entered into this new growth phase stronger, more efficient and competitive due to the pivoting that firms were forced to undertake to combat the fallout from the COVID-19 pandemic. These benefits arose from the continued utilization of the work-from-home modality within the private sector and reports of the realization of increased productivity from workers. New ventures and opportunities which have resulted in firms adding new products and services to their core functions, particularly in the areas of information technology and service delivery modalities. The retooling.
The parent company of Facebook, Meta, is trying to block tougher rules on its $5 billion settlement with Cambridge Analytica. On Wednesday, Meta asked a federal court to block the Federal Trade Commission from further restrictions with the landmark 2020 privacy settlement. The settlement came after numerous lawsuits alleged the company improperly shared user data with third parties, including Cambridge Analytica. But earlier this month, the FTC said the settlement should be updated in light of various alleged violations of the agreement. Meta says the FTC wants to impose more than 800 changes to the agreement, including a ban on monetizing younger users' data. Meta urges that the agency lacks the power to reopen the matter and that the new rules would be unconstitutional. However, there's no word from the FTC about Meta's request. And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Hal Shane Burke.
And time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, fire has destroyed another dormitory in Guyana, this time at the St. Angela's Girls Hostel in Carasabai Village. The Guyana Fire and Rescue Service says the report was received at approximately 4 a.m. In a statement, it confirmed that everyone was evacuated from the building and no one was injured. However, the building and its contents were destroyed. Investigations are ongoing. On the international scene, the U.S. House has passed the debt limit deal to suspend the nation's bill ceiling through January 1, 2025. The final tally for the vote was 314 to 117. A total of 149 Republicans and 165 Democrats voted for the bill, while 71 Republicans and 46 Democrats voted against the bill. The bill will next need to be passed by the Senate before it can be sent to President Joe Biden to be signed into law. And U.S. prosecutors have obtained a summer 2021 audio recording of former President Donald Trump in which he acknowledges keeping a classified document after leaving the White House. On the recording, Trump's comments suggested he wanted to share the information but was aware of limitations on his ability post-candidacy to declassify records. The former president is denying any wrongdoing. And those are the top regional and international stories. I'm Carrie Simpson.
And we head to a quick break. When we come back, Karen Madden will have your midday sports report.